this new story. Today is September 30th. It's the last day of the month. It's Tuesday and it has been a week ever since I finished filming this video. But today I was editing the footage of it and it was very nice to me to see how in the very first clip that I have of me talking about this story, which is the one that I interrupted right now, it was very hard for me to articulate what this story was. And I feel that's because I was still discovering what it was. But I don't think it was very helpful for you to see that or me talking about the story when she didn't really know what it was. So I wanted to come on here and just really briefly preface the story that I'm writing. It all started with a journal, as all my writing does. I have always loved Before Sunrise, the movie, and I haven't been able to finish the trilogy because every time that I start a second movie, my heart physically hurts and I'm not able to finish it, even though it's one of the simplest movies, you could say. It's just two people walking. In the first one, they're meeting for the first time. In the second one, it has been 10 years since they last saw each other. And in both of them, they're just exploring these different cities for one night, for a couple of hours, and just talking. And yeah, and we never cut away from them. It feels like we are there on that walk with them. And that absolutely breaks my heart because it's so simple, so beautiful, and so marvelous and human and wonderful. And so I love those movies. And during the summer I was rewatching Before Sunrise a lot for some reason, and I always try to watch Before Sunset. I still haven't finished the whole movie. I haven't even gotten to Before Midnight, but what I did get was a new journal and I started writing about the movies. I got this and I started journaling about them and why I like them. And I started watching Richard Linklater's interviews. He's a director and writer, and the man to whom this happened in real life, he did meet someone and they spent the whole night together talking and walking, and it was the most marvelous thing that he has ever done in his life, as he says. He's just wonderful. I think I could read my entry about this novel and see if there's anything good here. The most extraordinary thing I have ever done has been to really meet someone. This is one of my favorite movies because my happiest memories have been of days like this, walking around a city with someone. I have never been to Vienna, and I have never taken a train between countries, but I have kept walking with someone even when I was too tired to continue. I have stayed at a chair in a bar terrace even after the ice cubes in my drink melted and the humid summer night began to evaporate the water in my cup. Maybe I like this movie so much because not only I have been there, but I'm constantly there, remembering, running the role in my mind over and over. Maybe I like the movie so much because it allows me to replay the memories and hope for more. The movie puts the same amount of significance to what could seem like a mundane day as I put to those special ones. While the world tells me to move on, the movie says the day is important enough for us to make a movie of it. It reassures me, but also calls out of me, because the movie is not about whether they see each other again, whether they show up or not. The movie is about the hours they spend together, and only that. Time works in two ways. One, yes, this day might stand a higher significance than any other in your life, and therefore you are allowed to remember it that way. Two, that was one day in your life, and even if you see that person again, that day can come back, and you have to let it be that. I think these movies are everything that I strive for as an artist. I'm doing a master's in creative writing with a poetry thesis. I'm writing a collection of poems. All of those poems have to do with places, with leaving, with coming back, with nostalgia, with memory. I like documenting things, and all my things, I hope, have that touch of an early nostalgia, something that as you're living it, you are fully aware that you are going to miss it because it's been that magical and beautiful. I write fiction. I wrote a novel that has a similar question that presents itself in this new story and in this movie, which is there are persons who are the ones for you, and there's nothing that can compare to them. But timing isn't always right. Where do you meet? What is that point in the middle? Is there a middle? Is there a middle in time? Is there a middle in sacrifice? Is there... It's love enough? Which is one very simple question that we continue to ask ourselves in literature, in movies, in life. I continue to write about because I do not have the answer. One of my professors early on in my writing classes told me to choose that which obsesses you and just continue to write about it, because he believes that every poet is always writing over and over the same poem. And I love those films and I love writing, so this is the story of me writing this piece, and it's just that there will be an after. In 2 days I have my workshop and we'll see what my professor and classmates say about my story, but that would be a second part to this video, because this one, just as that first movie in the Before trilogy, is just about what happens in between and before the sun rises. So this is the in between before my story sees the sunrise. So yeah. Tonight is August 24. We still have 35 minutes left of the day. Tomorrow is Monday and I begin my second year of the masters, which is crazy to think about. Right now I'm writing a different story, and the central question of that story remains very similar to that of my novel, which is two people who meet at different points in time during their life. And I really like what happens when all we want to focus on is the different versions of ourselves that we have been throughout time, without necessarily having to categorize what was a better version. And if you wanted to categorize them, it doesn't always necessarily have to be that the latest version of two people is the right version. Sometimes maybe the beginning version was the right one, and there's little point in continuing to create a new version, but somehow you keep doing that out of human nature of trying to recapture something that was. And sometimes it's the opposite, sometimes it is better at the end, but maybe that's not the point of the story. Maybe the point of the story is just seeing people through time. And yeah. I'm currently taking a fiction workshop which I have never taken before, and even though I have written a whole first manuscript of my novel, I'm somehow very intimidated by this class, especially because I want to do a good job, and I feel that I haven't been engaging with fiction in like a serious, not a serious is not the word I'm looking for, but like when I'm just writing my novel with myself and my playlist and I'm just immersed in that world, it only feels like I'm putting to paper the images that I'm seeing in my head, and I'm listening to these characters and I'm just transcribing what they're telling me, or not telling me, but what they're saying to each other, and writing a collection of poems as my thesis. So happens that whenever I try to write poetry for myself, my mind directly goes to the workshop mentality and mood instead of like, okay, of course we need to start with some inspiration in just me and the paper, but hyper conscious that in some point of the process this is gonna be taken into that room, and I know the kind of readers that are in that room, and I know what they know of me, and so I feel that sometimes I write towards what's expected of me, which is not what is meant to happen and not a pressure that they're putting on me. It's just me and my mind and knowing that the writing is gonna be shared. And so I have really enjoyed writing my novel throughout this process because it felt like it's just this thing for me. Even though I do want to publish it and to have readers eventually, I hadn't like, there's no workshop room that I knew that this was gonna go in for, right? So now I'm in the workshop room and we'd had our first workshop. We have 2 more stories to read for Thursday. I have been reading books on craft to just, I don't know, feel more confident. I think they're helpful. I feel that there are a lot of things that are very normal and on hand for all the fiction writers in the workshop room, and I haven't been in a fiction workshop in quite literally years, that I feel I'm not at the top of my game or at the level of an MFA student, I don't know. So I've been reading and studying so I can read away the imposter syndrome. Today I finished On Writing by Stephen King. This book, it's not only about craft, it's only about his life, it's a memoir, it's many things. It has multiple parts, but at the beginning it's really about his life and his story, which I'm usually very interested in the lives of writers, but I don't personally gravitate towards Stephen King because he writes horror and that's my least favorite genre. I really don't like horror at all, so I have never picked up one of his books, but I keep hearing how this book is just fantastic for any kind of writing, and I agree, it was really good. I want to give more thoughtful thoughts on this just because I think it's a great resource. My professor told me to pick up Letters to a Young Novelist, which is like taking upon the letters to a young poet. So far so good. I only read the first letter because I finished this one. I wanted to go straight into this one, but then it was too much craft talk happening, so I put it on for today, but I think I can finish it before my class on Thursday because I have some questions for this and I'm hoping that I'll find new questions from this so I can ask him. But so far so good. I'm only saddened that I learned that this was translated from the Spanish after I bought it. If not, I would have bought the original. But then I was looking for it and I couldn't really find it, so it was meant to be, I guess. But it does read like a translation. I should have known by the 2 last names, Mario Vargas Llosa, but I don't know, I didn't think twice of it. But so far so good. And after being in the craft role for like a whole day, I picked up from my shelf, I have had this for a long time, is the short stories by Ernest Hemingway. It's a collection called Men Without Women. I love Hemingway. I love his writing. I know that he had many faults and things, but I still really love his writing and his prose. I really connect with it. I really connect with what I think it's like his thematic sentiment of lost throughout all of his stories and all of his subjects. There's this sense of lost for things, for the self, for a place, for love, for life. There's always like this sense of grief throughout his writing that I really feel when I'm reading, and that for me is the best thing that a book could do for me. And so I have had this for a long time, but because I love Hemingway so much, with his work, I like to read it in chronological order. So I was doing that, but then I got stuck in the short stories just because I'm not a lover of the short story format. I like the journey of staying with a character for a long time, even if it's just a novella. I like that. And so when a short story rolls around, I don't know if maybe it's just the short stories that I have read, but you get the sense of we're only gonna see this character for this much, so there are like many windows that we could go in about his life, but we are not going to, because that is not what the short story does. The short story is about this situation right now, and once that ends, so does the story. And after finishing on writing and starting Letters to a Young Novelist, I read the first story from this collection, which is called The Undefeated, and it's about a torero, a bullfighter, and I'm a vegetarian. So I don't love this sport, but it does happen to me that every time that I read his writing of it, I appreciate it in some weird way. Somehow I forget my judgments. I don't know. Like, I feel that I'm able to see it through his character's eyes, and to them it makes sense. I think that it broadens my perspective. I still think it's not a nice sport, but I can see, I guess, the intention behind it because of his writing. So I think that is accomplishing something. My plan is to continue to read books on craft and then jump into a short story. So I see the examples that I'm reading about the craft reflected on an actual story, and since they're short, it's gonna give me a better space to find these things or see at least how they work. That's gonna be nice, and it's gonna get me into reading short stories. One thing that Stephen King says in this book is that to be a good writer, you need to read and write a lot. So now we are in the reading process, so we can get to the writing process. Why do you like him writing? Yeah, I want to reread it.
That's why I like language so much.
Drawing people's faces, like, I'm very bad at it. Expectation of what Michael looks like versus like Michael.
Hello from the workshop room. I came early today. I have a class of 5. Right now it's 3:40, and I have been working on the drafting of my story, I guess. I was showing it to Brittany yesterday because I've been trying to go back to the first few pages and start fixing already a bit of the grammar and just the tone of it, because I feel that whenever I get stuck in a part of the story, it's in my head that the beginning is not great, so I like fixing as I go, though maybe you shouldn't really do that, I don't know. I like doing it for when I'm stuck, because then I can work on something else and that gives me the energy to then go back again to the part that I got stuck on and keep on writing. But I was showing it to her, and there was an image that I meant it as one thing, but she understood it at first as another, and I was like, wait, but that's way better, because that change in the narrative completely changes a lot of the story in a very cool way. Like, I think it adds a lot of trouble and tension, so that was so nice, because I was waiting to have a finished product to then show it, but since I was with her at the bookstore yesterday, I was like, could you read these 3 pages? And then she kept on reading, and it was like, I guess it was fate in a way, because if she hadn't read it that way, I wouldn't have thought of it, and I would have probably stayed with the sense that the story wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be, or as complex and vivid and real as I wanted it to be. But yeah, I've been working on that, and I'm so excited. This also feels so different from my novel in a very nice way. I like that kind of seeing like growth in between the 2 pieces. I love my novel, but this feels very different, and it's like I'm happy to see it. But yeah, I'll keep working on that. Then we have fiction workshop today. Here I am in the room. I love this room. I like sitting here, so then I have that view over there of like the outside, and I like looking at the sky because we get to see the sunset because of the time that our class ends, and it's nice. I really like this room. Hello. We are on a little darker setting today because it has been gloomy and raining outside, which is the best weather, at least for this story that I'm writing, although it's not necessarily raining or anything in this story. The atmosphere of it all, since it's very just conversational and coming back to someone you have known your entire life, but you have spent 2 years away from them. I feel this mood of weather helped me a lot with the writing of this, so much so that I feel I have had a really good writing day so far. Currently it's 3:24 p.m. I have a candle going on. I have all the lights turned off because I have found that when I'm creating, or at least in the creation process more so than the revision process, having dim lights and just my computer as the main source of light somehow helps me focus even more on the story, because around me everything else is like dim, and the screen and the words in it are the main thing that my eyes look at. I find that when I have so many other things, I'm good at maybe looking over the broader ideas and the broader structure of it all, but when I want to focus on the neat details of the story, this is the ideal environment. and I cannot predict the weather. So this is quite wonderful. So whenever days like this happen and I'm able to just focus on this, I really like to do that. Because I also have to work for my other classes, but I'm taking the day for this today. I think I have had a really good writing morning when I have drank 2 coffees and I haven't even realized this is my second coffee, and I didn't realize when it was gone because I was so focused on this. That is quite good. I started burning this candle when I started writing this story out of coincidence, but now the smell of it reminds me of this story. And this is one of my ways in which I get back into a story or writing. I usually like to have a scent or a candle that I associate with the story, and this time it has been this one, and it's running out. I still have a bit left, but I think I'll be able to find a similar one to this because this one was gifted to me, so I'll just find a similar one. I haven't been doing any writing on the journal today. I haven't even opened this. I do have a few notes that I was telling you about yesterday that my friend Brittany gave me when she read this story 2 days ago, and so I have them there. There are a bit like a few questions that she had and that I think could be helpful to expand the story. That was the main question that she pointed out, that I have been slowly working it into what I have, and I'm so glad I showed her that and that she like had that question, because I think it's making everything better. I have currently 5,028 words and it's not done yet, it's not finished. I do know where I wanted to go for the ending, but it's always hard for me, and I found this with my novel as well. Whenever I have a project and it already feels quite lengthy, it's hard for me to put all the pieces together that I want to put, because I'm the kind of writer that likes to leave a lot of clues and things to tie back at the end. And so I find that my endings are very important for that, because it can either work wonderfully or not. So when I come back and I have to work on that ending, it feels quite difficult to me to just jump into the page and do that. So I like going back to the beginning and rereading everything over. And what I do is that I use a color system of sorts, because my goal with this is not to start editing. Although if I see something and I can fix it now, I will. But I leave myself like notes as I go on, right? So I don't, like, I think I designate colors based on the story that I'm working on at the minute. I don't have like a universal color system for all of my writing, but for this one right now, I have been highlighting in yellow parts that I'm like, I want you there, but I don't love how it's written right now and nothing is coming to me, so I'm just gonna mark you. So when I'm in the revision process, I already know the parts that I want to change and I haven't been able to. If I find a part like that and the new way of writing it comes to me now, just change it. But if it takes me too long, I won't do it now, because then I would never finish. I've been using blue for things that I'm kind of like Easter eggs that I'm planting, and to remind myself this is one of the things I need to tie at the end or at some point in the story. You need to be circled back, because I know I want to say something by it, but just mention it once right now, it's not really doing all the work that I wanted to do. And then I also added a light gray because I started writing this thinking of the assignment that I have to turn in for my fiction workshop, which is turn in a short story to revise. We can also do like the beginning of a longer story. We can do chapters of something else. I'm hoping that for my second submission I'm able to work something from my novel into a piece for workshop. But this time around, since it was my first workshop and I don't know, I'm a bit scared, I'm not gonna lie, I wanted to write something else. And so I thought of this, which now I'm way more invested in it than just a workshop assignment. And so this thing, it's getting longer than a regular short story, and I'm okay with that. But I have a few parts that it's not that I want to delete them, but if I for some reason I would have to make this shorter to fit into the workshop, I have highlighted them light gray, so you know, like this maybe is not as necessary and it could be potentially cut out. I've been doing that as well. I only have one section like that so far. A section, like 2 paragraphs, which are more description based. I've just been going down the story looking for all of those little things, and also writing this new part of the narrative that Brittany made me think of into this. Those lighting. Wow. I have my document open, and then I also have a map of the city that I'm writing about. I'm writing about Tarifa in the south of Spain, and I have multiple places in the city that I'm like touching on with the narrative, so I like to keep the map open. To really see everything. And honestly, the thing that helps me write the most, not only for this but for everything, I always make a playlist for the projects that I'm working in. This story takes place in 3 days, and I'm currently writing the first day, and I have the sense that each day is gonna have a kind of a different atmosphere, hopefully, so you see change and it's interesting. And like how the before trilogy does, the before sunrise, before sunset, and before midnight. So that's all I have been doing, and I will be continuing to do for the rest of today. My goal is to get through everything that I have written today. I'm only a few pages away. Last time that I pressed record on this about the novel, not the novel, well, it might become a, I don't know, about the story that I'm writing now, which might become a novella or even a novel, I don't know. It's something on a longer length than just a short story. I finished the first draft of the first day, which will be a third of whatever this ends up being, and I already submitted it for a workshop, and it's way longer than a regular workshop submission should be. I was very surprised by it because when I first started writing, I didn't think I had that much to say about this. It's new topics that I haven't written about. It has to do with religion, it has to do with colonization, it has to do with immigration, which in themselves, of course, those are topics that do require a lot of words to them, and I don't think that any amount of words would ever be enough to cover those topics. But I didn't know that I had so much to say about it, so that was quite surprising in a good way. This draft ended up being 10,626 words, and I don't feel it's even done. I was writing it and it was getting too long for the workshop room, and I just wanted to make sure that I got all the plot points across, even though there are not many, but I know how crucial plot is. Even when, because my favorite books and my favorite movies are character-driven stories. They don't necessarily have a big plot, but there's always a sense of plot to them regardless, because that's how you make a story move. And I feel that is a very fine line of understanding and mastery, and I don't think I have it yet, so I wanted to include all the plot points. And I know there's much more to say about the relationship that I want to explore, especially in this first day. I know that the other days would like grant me the space to see how two people change, but since this is your first encounter with these characters, I did wanted to make you understand where they're coming from, who they were and who they are now. But I don't have much of that in this draft because it was getting already like too long, and I don't know. I sacrificed that over plot for this version just so I can send it to a workshop room, and it has already been sent. I do not want to touch it until I receive that feedback, which will be next week, and I'm thinking that that may be a second video, maybe a revision video. I think this video is more about the creating of it all, but it feels I left this story feeling very emotional because of the story, but also because of the idea. I just wrote my second story, I just wrote my second world in my head, and I don't know, it felt quite different from writing my novel, obviously, because the novel, the first draft of it, it's way longer. Of course, it was 76,826 words. And while I wrote those, I don't know why, since it was the first and only one that I had done, I was like, maybe this is just like the one book that I have in me, because I do think that we all have at least one book in ourselves, even if we might not choose to write them. So I thought that that experience had been really cool, and maybe something that wouldn't repeat itself, because I don't know, like I do have plans for other books, but it's one thing to have the idea, another thing to actually write it. And those books that I have planned in my head are in this same world as my novel, so the energy of them all feels similar, even though it's moving different plot points and different stories within that same universe. The tone of them, the rhythm of them feels similar in a way, kind of like Magnolia Parks does. In that you see that Magnolia and Daisy are very different tones, but they make sense together. That's how I'm envisioning my series. And with this story, the tone of it feels very, very different, and I was very surprised by that, because I don't know, it's like I have these questions all the time, but and maybe I shouldn't worry about them. Maybe it's just something that will come with time, and it will be other people's jobs to tell me. But I question what kind of writer might be at the end, like what kind of stories would I go on to write? In what canon would you place me as a writer, I guess, is a question that sometimes pops into my head, and maybe it's, again, not something that I should be worrying about. And it's not that I worry about it, but I do wonder about it. And writing this story, it felt like one of those stories that I saw so far from me, in the sense that it feels like a more literary fiction story than a romance. And not saying that there's anything wrong with either of them, or one it's better than the other, it's not what I'm saying, but I feel that literary fiction often comes from, or at least the ones that I read, comes from older ages and older generations, and it's just touching on different topics. I feel that both of these stories that I wrote, they have love at the core of them, but they look at it with very different lenses. I feel the novel looks at it from a more journeying, nostalgic, hopeless perspective, more infatuating, more first love-esque, even though they were not each other's first love, but I think it kind of views their relationship with that same energy. And this one, they have been each other's first love, but there are more bigger questions around them, I feel, because of their situation. There are questions of place, belonging, heritage, religion, politics. The atmosphere of them feels more heavy than this one for some reason. Maybe it's just the parts of the stories that I chose to focus on. But this kind of story is the one that I could have read on a book and loved it, but I could have felt like, wow, that is so far away from me. I don't know when I would have the eye's attention or the calling to write something like that. And I don't know, maybe the story sucks, maybe it's not great, and it's for sure going to have a lot of things that I would need to change and fix and whatnot. But when I left the page and I felt that the draft was done, I got very emotional with myself, because it felt kind of like I felt myself grow, or I felt myself as if another room in my mind had completely been constructed. And I feel when I was writing it, I was kind of carving the space for that, and once I finished, it was like, wow, I also have this other story within myself that I didn't know I could possibly have before, at least not right now at my age. I don't know, maybe it's not that deep. Maybe it's not that important. Maybe it's just writing another story, and maybe we can all write all kinds of stories. But to me, it felt important. After I finished and before I submitted it to workshop, and I was reading it here so I could color code, highlight, and I feel that was really helpful. But I was reading it here and annotating, and then I put my Kindle away, and then I went back to pick it up. I saw this on the cover, because I have the thing that you would have, like the cover of the book, but it says the title of the story and it says my name, and that felt very, I don't know, like surprising for a second, because obviously this is not published or near being published. But I don't know, it felt like a little epiphany of sorts. I don't know. It was something about seeing the title of my story and my name as the cover of a book on a Kindle that made it feel very, very real. But yeah, that is everything. I'm really glad that I recorded this process. I love writing stories, and I hope that that will be something that I can continue to do for always. I hope that it becomes engraved into my routine of like, oh, I'm writing this story and then I'm done and then I'm writing the next and the next and the next. But yeah, that is everything. I officially wrote my second story. None of it is published yet, but someday it will, and it'll be amazing. And I'll look back at this video and I'll be like, wow, that was me at 23 writing my second story ever and not knowing what was about to come. So yeah, I still have a lot of questions. There are a lot of things I don't know, and there are a lot of things that I'm learning every day that I go to my fiction class. There's always like something that is being said or something that I read from one of my classmates that they do, a move that they take, and it's always all very inspiring. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.